Hi, and welcome to worksheet number 2, which is the company Brainstorm worksheet. And this is actually probably one of the more exciting worksheets that you're going to go through, because this is where you are not only setting up the architecture behind your business and what your business will be doing, but more importantly also, you're going to take the first step into identifying what your brand is and going through a little bit of a branding strategy. And I can tell you right now that this company Brainstorm here and the branding that you're going to get into the other pages, this is normally sold by advertising agencies, and I have paid upwards of $70 to about $150,000 to go through this sort of corporate construct and branding worksheet. This is exactly what you would be doing with a advertising agency, but more importantly actually, the first section is, you're not going to get that from the advertising agency, that's really from me, but the back part, the branding that we're going to go into here, after we do the corporate construct, is something that you pay a fortune for with advertising firms. So you have the benefit here that this worksheet was created by a advertising and marketing person like myself that's gone through this many times. So part 1 of this worksheet is going to be looking into the corporate construct of who we are as a company. And I want you in the first section to really write in here, we are the leading dog walking business in the city. And then I want you to think, well, wait a second, what does that leading actually mean? And everybody says, we're a leader in this. What makes you the leader? And so I want you to say, we are the coolest dog walking company that's going to take care of your dog in this specific manner. Or if you're in retail, we are a retailer of the coolest stuff you can find in the city, or whatever that is. I just want you to really quickly sketch it out, what you think the company should be. And there's no right or wrong answer here, by the way. This doesn't have to be perfect. I just want you to sketch into the corporate construct what you think you are. And leave it at that. Whatever comes to your mind first is normally the right thing. So don't worry so much about it. I just want you to fill that in. Now, in this little section here, I want you to go back to the previous worksheet, worksheet number 1, which was, what were those 4 products that you thought could be used. And I want you, out of those 4 products, pick the 2 really high margin added value products or services. So when I say high margin, that means you will always have a base product that you're going to sell. And there's always going to be something that you want to sell on top of that increases your margin. So in a retail setting, Best Buy is a good example. They're not only going to sell you the camera, but they're going to sell you their most profitable product, which is that product warranty plan, or that 1-year or 2-year, I don't know, technology insurance, or whatever they call it. That's their highest margin product that they're actually selling. It's not the electronics, it's the insurance program that makes them the most money. So I want you to think about the products and services you're selling, but what is the added value that you're also going to sell to the consumer, or it could be businesses, that is going to provide additional value. So think about that a little bit, and I'm going to try and give you some examples. I always go back to the dog walking business because it's such a very basic business, but there's actually more to it and more marketing to it than you might think. But once again, dog walking, picking up your dog at noon and taking your dog for a walk or feeding your cats is the basic service that you provide. And it's a very commoditized type of product because in most cities, dog walkers will have sort of the same rate. And sometimes I think it's like $14 or $16 or something like that. So now what is the added value product or service that you could add to that? Well, I'm going to walk your dog, but I'll take your dog to the dog spa and make sure they get fully, get treated. Or I'm going to go to the vet. Or I can pick up your dry cleaning along the way as well. I'm walking along the neighborhood. So those are sort of things that might be a completely sort of out-of-the-box thinking of added value product or service that you could tag on that might be, and that extra service could be an extra $10, right? And people might not take it every time, but maybe once a week. And that's an added value, but it's also a significantly higher margin for you. And in the next section, I want you to think about, are you a vertically integrated company or a horizontally integrated company? So vertically integrated means that you own or have partnerships which supply all of the above services. And if you're in a manufacturing business, that means you have sort of full control over the supply, manufacturing, and distribution of your business. So that's what vertically integrated means. Or are you horizontally integrated? So some of the high margin or added value products or services, you're going to be working with other business owners which supply some of the services, and so you might not be offering everything yourself. So that's a good example. I'll give you an example in one of my businesses is we do the installation of solar panels in the Bahamas, but we actually don't. We give you the opportunity to buy the solar panels from one of our German manufacturing partners. So that's, for example, an idea of sort of horizontally integrated. We're getting high quality product from a third party that we work together with and have a revenue share business model, but at the same time we also then do the installation for the solar panels on people's rooftops. So that's sort of the sort of concept. Now, I want you to take worksheet number 1 and rewrite what you've identified as the market disruption event. So go to the first worksheet and now distill and write down in detail the shift in technology service offerings, the shift in market and consumer behavior, and the opportunity. So I want you to just make it a bit more formal, maybe put it into a short sentence, exactly what the market disruption event is. And you're going to be doing a lot of this. You're going to be carrying over a lot of information from other sheets. I'm going to ask you to refine it a little bit and tighten it up a bit. But this is the process of getting you to a really well thought out business architecture and brand. So page number 2 that we're going to look at is your business model. And I've divided it into 2 areas. There is the consumer business model, and there is the business-to-business consumer model. And so consumer meaning you're going to sell to individuals or in some sort of a retail setting or particular end users, or business-to-business being you're selling to a wholesaler, you're selling to a retailer, or potentially large businesses and corporations. So if you are a dog walker, you're going to be a consumer product. If you are a company that sells dog and cat food bowls, then you're probably more a B2B type business. You're going to sell to a wholesaler or a retailer. And select which side you're in, because it's actually going to very quickly clarify to you that, okay, we are selling to retail consumer or we're selling to corporations, and in detail then, because the demographics, so the person who's actually buying in the corporation will be very important, versus here it's actually in groups of individuals. So Now that you've identified your products up here, which are high margin added value products, and in the previous spreadsheet you said, okay, these are other products, and I want you to write them down here. So these are your, I want you to think of at least 5 sources of revenue or money in this instance. And I want you to think of any potential add-on product or service you could sell on top of your primary product. So for example, is there some related product or service you could bundle? So once again, in a retail setting, if you're selling electronics, it was like this warranty plan that you could sell to fix a broken product. If it is your dog walking business, you know, would be could pick up the dry cleaning. If it is a general retail setting, you could say, hey, I am going to deliver your particular product to your house. You can buy it in the store, but we'll deliver it for you. So those are sort of ways of potentially thinking of some add-on products or services you could sell on top of your primary product. So you've identified the primary products. I want you to think of the high margin, added value, add-on products that you could potentially sell. And this is really important. And in particular, if in the B2B or service industry, you need to secure one sort of large sales contract to anchor your company financially. It's an absolute must. So if you're a dog walker, I want you to find that first client right now. Find the first client. Really important. It gives you a one leg up. And if you're in the B2B business and you're selling a service or something like that, then by all means you need some large sales contract to anchor your company financially. It's an absolute must. And I want you to think a little bit in the next sections about what requirements to set up your company. And obviously capital funding is the first item, and then having a sales force to sell your product. But I want you to think of some additional things that you might need. Maybe it's a website, so you might type in website. Maybe there is a specific need for your business. Hey, if you're in retail, you need a stellar high traffic location, right? And by the way, this is, I wrote about this in my book, so if you're going through this product, chances are you also have the book, and there's a great example of when I say high traffic location, and if you get a chance, read the book, because there's a great section about how in my neighborhood there was like this one location where there was, I think, 5 or 6 different retailers in it, and all of them went bankrupt, and the only one that was making money was the landlord. So think about high traffic location specific for your demographic, right? Who your customer is, and that's a real key. So in that in mind, we need to figure out your target market. So I want you to think of your customer not in sort of like, you know, I don't know, students between 18 to 25, and that really doesn't cut it for me. I want you to give your customer a name. Is it Jennifer, or is his name Bob? And how old are they? And what kind of guy or girl are they? And do they have any hobbies or kids, or are they employed? Are they self-employed? Where do they live? Where do they shop? What do they do for fun? I really want you to think of your target market. And then what I want you to think of, what is the sort of the secondary target market? And maybe there's another 3 or 4 total sort of target markets. But I really want you to drill down, you know, Bob, he's 24, just, you know, graduated, looking for a job, loves, I don't know, electronic music, and likes, I don't know, the pub down the street, if I can spell, pub down the street. Okay, and the reason why we're doing that is I want you to humanize your customer. I want you to see that individual. as a unique person, because as you start thinking about Bob, and he's 24, that just graduated, and he's looking for a job, what else does Bob, well, maybe Bob is, trying to save time and money, because he just graduated and he doesn't have a job, and what's important to him? Well, food, cheap food, maybe cheap beer, and being able to go out with some friends while trying to forget about the fact that he doesn't have a job right now. So I want you to really humanize that particular individual and give them a name, because as you start thinking about that person, you really start understanding their personality. And that's really what the key is about your target market. It's not about just saying a bland, 24-year-olds that that don't have a job, but I want you to humanize them. Really, absolutely key. And then think of maybe some others. Maybe there's a there could be another person where it's Jamie. He's 42. He's got a really great job, but he's bored with his life, and he too loves electronic music and likes the pub down the street. So it's trying to think of that type of consumer, because as you understand your target market better, you're going to understand how they react to your marketing, where you should be marketing to them, and how you could potentially entice them by meeting their basic needs. And it's really always that. What is their basic need, and how do you sell them on that need? So now that you've sort of identified that particular target market, and I want you to think of at least 4. Please think of at least 4, because I think it's important to have 4 specific areas that you can target, because I can tell you right now, chances are 2 of these are not going to come through for you. For whatever reason, maybe you have a different idea of the target market, or maybe you thought about something that exists here, and in reality out there in the real world it doesn't. So that's a real key in terms of figuring out your target market. Now, I want you to also now think completely outside of your box. Think of a place or a group that you could potentially sell your product that no one has done before or isn't exploiting at the moment. So there's some key things that you could potentially consider. Maybe there's senior citizens that really are hip and cool, and they want to try out your product. Maybe there is a specific product or area that's been completely ignored. I want you to think outside of the box. I want you to think of something absolutely crazy that people would say, you're nuts, this is insane, that would never work, are you crazy? And chances are you might actually come up with something that might be really cool. And at the same time, don't put all your money on this, but I just want you to think outside of the box, and don't let yourself be stopped by preconceived notions. I think that's a real key thing to remember. Now, in the sales construct, we need to look at whatever you're selling to that group, that target market, and these products that you're selling here. Is it a one-time sale? Is it multiple sales? Or is it a recurring subscription sale? So I want you to think about, once again, I'm going to try and take it. The dog walking business very often is a one-time sale, because you have, it actually might be more a recurring subscription type sale, because you are selling someone on your services, they subscribe to it, and then pretty much for the next year or two, you don't really talk much about them about, you don't have to sell them every week on walking the dog. So that's sort of probably more a recurring subscription. If you're selling in retail, it could be a one-time sale if it's big ticket items. It could be multiple sales if you're a corner store, right? So you're trying to get customers to come in repeat times because you've got multiple sales. And multiple sales could also be if there is a product that needs to be upgraded. or improved, or some new stuff comes out every year, then this might be multiple sales. And what I want you to think about in this sort of process, and with the target market and the individual products that you sort of are sources of revenue that you've identified, what do you think makes you unique in comparison to all the others? So if you're that dog walker, you remember in worksheet number 1, we thought of some kind of unique niche ideas. And I want you to augment those a little bit further. What is it that's going to make you unique? I'm the dog walker that walks your dog and picks up your dry cleaning and makes sure the dog goes to the dog spa, which, by the way, we provide in-house. So that's a unique service proposition, something that others might not have, and it's maybe a bit more high-end or upscale. And in the retail setting, you remember I told you about this corner store, which was a pharmacy, but a dry cleaner, and I think it was like a I don't know, Mr. Minute or something like that, shoe place. It was all in one. It was kind of really cool. I'm like, wow, you just have to go here and you don't have to go to any other stores. So that sort of was a really unique service proposition. And the store was really cool and fun, and the store, the guy that ran the store was really nice and cool too. So you actually want to go and give him your money. And so that's sort of what I call the unique service proposition, something that really makes you unique. And just to give an example, the Virgin group of companies, what's their unique service proposition? Well, not only are we going to sell your product, but we're going to make sure you really have fun using that product and you're satisfied and you don't get screwed over. And that's sort of a unique service proposition that makes, for example, Virgin, like Virgin Mobile or Virgin whatever, a unique service proposition. So think of at least 3 things. And I know it's tough. This isn't easy. I'm really trying to make you think about what your business architecture looks like and how that plays into later on your corporate construct, but also more importantly into your company culture and what you need to push in order to sell your product or get your salespeople, if you have salespeople, to sell your particular product to the consumer. So that's part 1. And we're now going to focus on part 2. And if you need some time, by the way, to fill out this business model, take some time right now. Do this first. Get it filled out. Press pause on the video real quickly. Get it done, and I will see you back in a couple of minutes. And then what we're going to do is we're going to get into part 2, the commercial brainstorm. Go on. Take some time to do it. Now, part 2, the commercial brainstorm, and I'm going to repeat once again. I hope you've done page 1 of this worksheet, because otherwise you're going to get yourself into big trouble without having done the first page, because a lot of stuff flows from that. We're now looking at what I call the commercial brainstorm, which is what is your actual commercial objective with this particular business. And the commercial objective would be something that's clear-cut and very precise. Our goal is to be the dominant provider of service X in our particular town, city, or neighborhood. Or it would be we are looking to make or sell at least $5 million or $125,000 of this particular product in a 12-month period. It needs to be something tangible, something that you can measure, and something that 6 months down the road you can look at the results and see if you're meeting your commercial objectives. So the idea is the business, product, and architecture and the branding needs to achieve your commercial objective. And if it is not meeting your commercial objective, then perhaps either the product mix needs to be changed, the target market, or potentially the way you approach with your brand. Now, at the same time as your company having a commercial objective, I want you to think about your personal objective. So let me just step back 1 second. So the commercial objective might be sell a $125,000 dollars worth of product. It's actually kind of hard trying to type at the same time you're trying to put this into the screen capture. So apologies if there's some spelling mistakes in there. I'm actually a pretty good speller, but the other thing might be you're saying, you know, we want to have 25% market share in our neighborhood. All right, so that's, for example, a very specific, measurable, based on revenues, sales. All right, so once again, when I say make it measurable, 25% market share of what? Revenues, sales, amount of customers coming through the door, in comparison to our competition. It's something that needs to be a very measurable event. And then you need to say, okay, what is my personal objective? And this is simply you. And once again, there's no right or wrong answer, but is your goal to sell your company after 5 to 10 years? Are you looking to really grow your business, take it public? Or are you really just looking to own and operate your own business, and I'm going to continue doing this as long as it's fun and profitable? And I really want you to think about these three, because it really does change your corporate architecture and your brand as well, because the middle here, taking a company public, is stressful, intense, takes tons of capital, and I think sometimes you have to be a little bit crazy to go and do it. I certainly fit into this area. I've done it before. But frankly speaking, after taking my last company public, I think I might actually rather be somewhere here again, which I've done before, or if I can find a business that's kind of fun on the side, then I would do it. So for example, the business I'm running here, which is helping you start your business, this is something I'm doing it because it's fun and it's profitable for me, but I enjoy doing it. And so that's sort of my personal objective for helping you guys out start your new business. Now, in any marketplace, there are 4 specific areas that apply to your brand, and they are the cultural debate, barriers, the enemy, and the reasons to believe. This is the basic construct of every great brand that is out there. And so we're going to go through them, and I'm going to explain them step by step exactly what that means. In a marketplace, there's always a current cultural debate about a particular product or market. So it's really what customers want, or what they're talking about, what they're frustrated with, and there's this need for something. Whether that need is, whether they actually really need it or they just want it is a different, right? So most of the time we are selling you something that you don't really need, but you want it because it might give you status or you feel special. So in a cultural debate based on the product that you're selling, here is where your customers has sort of an internal debate. Sometimes it could also be in the newspapers, right? Or talking with your friends, or talking amongst themselves, or talking to themselves. So there's a good example. So for example, the dog walking business, which I keep coming back to because it's a very basic business. Your customers want, or are potentially frustrated with the status quo. So dog walking is not a luxury thing. It might be to a certain extent, but most of the time people are frustrated because you got to take your lunch hour, you got to run home, you got to let out the dog, and you got to run back to work, grab something on the go, and make sure you're back in time to work. And by the way, even if you're self-employed, that's how it normally goes. You're like, darn, I gotta go and let the dog out. And so you're kind of frustrated and you want some time back. So maybe that is a cultural debate. So if I'm a dog walking customer, I'm frustrated with the status quo, so I'd be check marking that. I'm looking for someone that's trustworthy because my dog is my best friend and I need to solve a problem, right? And I don't want any, like, stupid spell checking thing. I don't want to hassle. So those are sort of things. Now, if you're selling something in a retail setting, maybe it's I want convenience. Or if you're selling something really unique, you want to be part of something, feel some freedom, luxury status. So really look at the products you're selling, and you've identified that the name of that customer, Bob, who's 24, who just graduated and is looking for a job but loves electronic music and likes the pub down the street, but he's really trying to save time and money. So Bob, who's 24, what is he thinking about right now? He wants convenience. Any student is lazy. They want some convenience. Because they're kind of broke, they want some sort of luxury or be part of something. And want to feel special, but they also might want a problem solved right now, real quickly. A lot of the young generation is in here, by the way. Instant gratification, or make their life easier, right? Maybe they, because they've got spare time, they want to contribute. So I want you to think about that particular customer, or those 4 customers you've identified, and I want you to think about what are they thinking about, what's going on in their mind in terms of cultural debate. And by the way, if it's not here, feel free to add some here. I've left you some room. Now, I want you to think about what are some of the competitive barriers that you might encounter. And barriers here mean, what is it that would prevent you from potentially selling to this particular customer? And it could be a financial barrier, it could be a perception, market perception, or it might be a lack of reaching or being able to reach that market. So a barrier might be, okay, you're selling you're selling a retail product, but Bob really only cares about his electronic music and going to the pub. How do I reach him? How do I get him to the store? He never really walks past my store, but I want him, to get into the store. So maybe the barrier might be not being present in the pub and not being a cool or funky enough store, or I'm not really saving him any time and money because he has to walk all the way over here. So once again, that is what I mean by the barriers, and I want you to think of at least 5 of them. And this is something, it's going to take you some time, and there's no right or wrong answer. You're really just brainstorming. Very often, going through this, it sometimes takes weeks if you're going with an advertising agency to figure this out, multiple meetings, and you might also make it a group effort. You might actually ask some friends. I always ask some friends to sit in some of my branding meetings because they come up with a unique and different perspective. So that's really the barriers section. Now let's talk about the enemy. And when I say enemy, it's really, what are some negative thoughts your customers might have about your new business? So if you're a service provider, it could be, these guys are just a startup company. Who the hell are they? They haven't been around. They've been around since, 6 months. What do they know? The other negative thought could be, and so in dog walking business could be something like that if you're just getting into this, and there's other people that are more qualified or have a longer history or much more testimonials. And so that business is a lot about trust. So they're like, well, I don't know you, and nobody of my friends knows you, so why am I going to trust you when I know Jennifer down the street who's been doing this for the last 10 years? So that's really a what I mean by enemy. And there are the negative thoughts that your customers might have about your new business that's going to prevent them to buy your product, to go to your store, or to believe you when you're telling them something about your product. And I want you to think of 5 items, and it's going to be a real key. So let's step back 1 second. When I say barriers, I mean maybe it's the location, right? And I'm just I want you to write full, complete sentences. But in this one is maybe you're, brand new with no history. And actually, I wouldn't write it that way. I would say, who are these guys? We don't know them, right? That's really the key. Or the other one, enemy might be not really interested. And believe it or not, lots of people say this. I'm not interested in this until you give them a reason to believe, which is the next section. So if we're now looking at the 3rd section, and I'm sorry I'm jumping around a bit, but I just wanted to give you an idea. The reason to believe is, what are some positive thoughts that could dispel the negative thoughts above? So, who are these guys? We don't know them. And what are you going to say to them that will dispel the negative thoughts? So when you say, they're going to be, who are these guys? We don't know them. Well, once again, dog walking business. We are certified and licensed. We got some awesome new products that Jennifer down the street has never thought of mentioning to you or offering to you. And you know what? We're really good people, and come and meet us in person. Hang out. Come to the pub and meet us, and we'll show you a good time. We'll show we're good people. We're responsible. So that's for your dog walking business or your retail business. So those are sort of reasons to believe, and providing some positive thoughts that will dispel some negative thoughts your consumer might have. It's a real reason to believe. And I'll give you an example of my business. When I started my renewable energy business, we were brand new. We needed millions of dollars, and everybody was like, why should I give you my money? I mean, you're only in your 20s, so why am I giving you my money? And I said, well, my family has been in the energy business for 120 years. And I'm 4th generation. I've got big shoes to fill, but guess what? I made my dad the chairman of the company. He's got some gray hair, and he's got some really good thoughts, and we make a good management team. Trust me. So that was a reason to believe for investors to give money and say, okay, that was a really strong reason to believe. And that's actually why I went into that business, because I knew that I had this reason to believe for investors to invest in that particular business and invest big sums, bigger than any other businesses before. So take some time, once again, and figure out the barriers, the enemy, and the reasons to believe. And if you need a little bit more time just to think about it, press pause, do the work. Maybe ask some friends or sit down somewhere, have a coffee with them, and just ask them what maybe their thoughts are, some barriers. And by the way, your friends are going to be the first ones to say, it can't be done, you're crazy, it's not possible. So that might be a barrier. Might be right there. They have some preconceived notion, or this might actually be more an enemy, but there's some preconceived notion. I'm going to put this in here because I think it's important for you to realize. That's preventing these people, and you need to shatter that thought and give them something else to believe in. So take some time, press pause, and we'll see you in part 3 of the final brainstorm. but really do take some time real quickly to complete this. All right, now we're going to look at part 3, which is the final brainstorm. And we're going to take what you've worked on in the past 2 pages of worksheet number 2, and we're going to put it all together. And once again, there's no right or wrong answer in a final brainstorm and sort of business architecture. That's really what you think is the right way. So a lot of companies that were started with something that had never been thought of before, and people were thinking, this is crazy, I don't think this is right. But don't let yourself be intimidated by that. So in part 3, we're now going to look at your positioning. In part 1, you said about who we are and who our customer is, and sort of the target market and the key products we're selling. So I want you to condense the who we are section from part 1 into one very short sentence. And I want you to really condense it. And the reason why I'm forcing you to condense it in such a small area is because it's really going to make you think. There ain't a lot of room here to write 10 paragraphs or an entire full page. It's almost like I want you to sort of take a Twitter approach to condensing who we are, because ultimately this will also help you later on in sort of any sort of elevator pitch that you're going to give to an investor, your banker, or whoever else you're going to be dealing with in the future. And then after you've done that, I want you to think about the brand values and the personality of your brand that's going to appeal to your target market identified in part 1. So once again, or sorry, I should say actually part 2. Remember we were talking about Bob, and we are giving him some sort of wants and desires, and we've given him some reasons to believe. And so I want you to think of what personality does my brand have and what values. And I mentioned to you, for example, the Virgin brand was a good example, because the brand value and the personality of the brand is hip and fun and young. But the values are, we are not going to screw you over. We're going to keep it very simple. And if you buy our product, we promise you're going to have a lot of fun, because not only are you getting that product, but you're being part of something, and we're going to give you lots of extras that make it worthwhile. So that's the brand value and personality. I want you to distill it in once again, in a sentence about everything that we've talked about. And hopefully by now, you kind of understand what your brand value and your personality for your brand is going to be, because frankly speaking, you need to talk to these people in your target market, right? And so your brand is going to reflect your target market's needs, wants, and desires and personality, because like in any in any life situation, it's all about relationships. So we want to be able to relate to a brand or get back to a feeling or emotional state that we've had in the past, and we can get it through this particular brand. So Coca-Cola is a good example. Coca-Cola is all about feeling good. And because we've been influenced by Coca-Cola since we were a kid, and you might not do this consciously, but unconsciously there was something in your mind where you're like, you know what, I'm going to have a Coca-Cola because I want to feel like a kid again, and it makes me feel good. And very often, sometimes I notice that. For example, I don't drink a lot of pop, very rarely. But I've noticed recently that their marketing approach has kind of shifted to my demographic, my target market, to get us back to buying that pop, because we've been sort of away from pop and something like that. And I'm kind of noticing myself, I'm like, you know what, I'm feeling kind of down and tired and whatever else, I'm going to have a Coca-Cola because it tastes good and it's fun and it gives me some energy. So it's kind of weird how these brand values and personality kind of pull you in. So I want you to think the same thing for your business. And at the same time, I want you to create a brand promise. A brand promise is something that meets the cultural debate, breaks down the barriers, destroys the enemy, and gives people a reason to believe. Now you know why I made you work in the last section on the debate, the barriers, the enemy, and the reasons to believe. You have everything here. This is your framework for your brand promise. And this is a well-known term. A lot of people throw it around, but not many people actually know what it means. So I must say it again. The brand promise is really something that's going to meet the debate of the customers, break down their barriers, and give them a reason to believe whilst absolutely destroying any sort of preconceived notions they might have. That's the brand promise. And from the brand promise, hopefully, you'll be able to identify a brand name or an identity. Now, if you can't think of a cool name, think of an identity first. And that might give you an idea of brand names. And by the way, you might want to open up Network Solutions and open up a like this here, for example, and start looking at company names, because chances are, if you think of a name like Virgin, and I'll just give you a example, most of the time everything is going to be taken, really taken. Sometimes it's incredible how hard it is right now to select a brand name, because most of the time you have to think of an available domain name. And if at all possible, try and get a .com. Sometimes your domain may change your company name if you have trouble finding the proper domain name. And no matter what people tell you, the shorter, the more precise is still the better domain name. I have had we started a business out of the UK, which was a .com. It took me 7 months. 7 months of searching in dictionaries, thesauruses, and online on Network Solutions to come up with a name that was available and was a .com. And the brand name ultimately was derived by the fact of the availability of the domain name. But at the same time, it still needed to meet the identity, the brand promise, and the brand values. And so this is going to be, this section here, is going to be the most difficult part for you. And yes, you need a website. If you're a dog walking business, yes, you need a website, because people will check you out. And so, very important. So I want you to now focus on this particular section. I just walked you through it. Make absolutely sure that you do this and that you get to a brand promise. Because if you know your brand and what you're promising your customer and you have the matching identity, half of your sales battle is done. Because if you can give this to your salespeople, or if you're selling yourself, you know now who you're selling to. You know the character. And by the way, don't do this just once. After 12 months or after a year, I want you to go back to this and see, does it still apply? Is this still the target market based on the experience that we've had? And I want you to, this is sort of always a work in progress. It's always changing, shifting. There's always changes in consumer behavior. And always make sure that you're still in that niche, that you're still targeting that niche. And by the way, if you ever get to one of my seminars, which I highly, highly recommend, I've got some really great marketing people that come to the seminars, and these guys are at the top of their game, working for some of the top companies in the world, and they can help you so dramatically with the marketing and branding aspect. So if you're still not 100% sure, do your best. There is no wrong answer, and you will have at least completed something that from an advertising agency standpoint would cost you somewhere from $70,000 to $100,000 to do to figure out this brand. And you just did it here in sort of 3 pages, and on the cheap, but that's what we're trying to do. But you'll have a good idea of what your brand promise is, and then hopefully as you establish your business and you launch it, and you continue working with me and you come to some of these seminars, you'll be able to expand on your branding and your corporate architecture, or sorry, your business architecture. Anyways, that is part 3 of the brainstorming for week number 1. If you have any questions, you feel free to email me at tyler@tylernassau.com, and I will see you in the next worksheet. Talk to you soon. Bye.